I mentioned we're waiting for the advisory. In between now and then, let's bring in Fox Weather hurricane specialist Bryan Norcross. Bryan, obviously you look at this, folks are saying, what is that? You look at the visible satellite, though. When I watched it earlier today, it kind of brought me back a little bit to what we were looking at in the early stages of Erin, where we talked about it like an old house that had good bones, just a bunch of problems. When the problems go away, this could become something more significant.
Yeah, it's a good swirl. It's just a low-level swirl, and there are really very few thunderstorms associated with it. Okay, look at that. What do you see? You see all this up here, right? No, that's not it at all. It's this over here. That's the swirl that is the center of Gabrielle, and you can clearly see what's gone wrong with the system. Look at these clouds blowing. Everything is blowing that way. There are just strong upper-level winds blowing across it, and if you look over here, there are not even clouds out in here. So this is very dry air that's being pumped on across Gabrielle. This isn't so much Saharan dust. There is some dust there that I'll show you in a moment, but this is really just a very dry atmosphere and really hostile winds. But there are good bones there, you could say, although describing this as a tropical storm is right on the edge, I would think. Although if you look at this, this is like a photograph from space, the visible picture. Look right in there, and you can see that some thunderstorms are trying to develop there on that side of the center of circulation. And you can see that the center of circulation is kind of moving off to the west-northwest. So there's the dust, and I want you to notice how thick this is in here, but then it comes around here and it's just very kind of mild. So that's not the issue so much. It's just really the just amazing dryness here in the atmosphere, and the probably even more so the strong upper level winds. The system can't develop thunderstorms to put enough moisture in the atmosphere to push the dry air away. Those strong upper level winds are just counteracting that. I also want you to notice this front right here. It's kind of like a dust front surging in from the northwest, pushing down into the tropical Atlantic. So here are the Caribbean islands. So Africa, of course, is over here. And in between, you can see anything that might come off of Africa is going to be stuck in really heavy dust. And that's going to be significant here in just a moment. All right, there's the cone. And you see the Hurricane Center keeping the winds in the 45-mile-an-hour range for the next couple of days, because those upper-level winds are still forecast to be hostile. But then they let up, and up here around Bermuda, the water is quite warm. So if you get more conducive atmospheric conditions, plus you get very warm water, in theory, if you have a good circulation, the system can spin up, and that's what the forecast is, 80 miles an hour. And then it gets caught in the strong upper-level winds, kind of pushing it off that way, and that may actually enhance the wind flow and make it a little bit stronger. As it does that, they have it up to 90, and then it just jets on off up into the North Atlantic. When we look at the various models here, and you can see we have the GFS in yellow, and then the European ECMWF, that's the European, and then the Google AI DeepMind model, and you can see the three of them. They all have basically the same idea, just a little different angles. And because this thing is so weak, forecasts for systems that are weak are always more uncertain. But there is high probability that this is going to go to the east of Bermuda. When we look at Bermuda here close up, you can see that, yes, some of the GFS lines are still there. That's why still need to watch it in Bermuda. But all the other models are to the east. And remember, the left side of the storm is the weak side. So if it goes to the east, they'll be dealing with the weaker side of a developing hurricane if the Hurricane Center's forecast is right. So anyway, keep an eye on it in Bermuda, but we're not too concerned at this point. All right, down we go to the Caribbean. And if you remember that dust front I was talking about, look, there it is. Right there. That's that push of dry air. And these are these clouds that can't quite develop over the ocean because the air is so dry and dusty. So everything kind of west or east of there, all this area here is really hostile to any kind of development. So what we have is we have a system in here. You barely see a rotation. That was the system that we were following up to yesterday. The Hurricane Center had a 20% on it, and now they've taken that that one down to 0 in the next 7 days. So not maybe never, but in the next 7 days. All right, then we have another one just coming off of Africa over here. So that's the one that they are tracking right now. And so they have this 20% chance on that. And here's the one down here that used to have a 20% chance. So odds really low because you have hostile winds and you have super dusty, dry air out there. All right, so let's take a look at these two systems as they move. So there's the one just coming off of Africa, and here's that other one that doesn't have any percent in the next 7 days on it. But let's just see what they're forecast to do by the European model. Well, here they come. So here we are over the weekend, Saturday. Notice this one has a little more moisture with it. That's why the Hurricane Center has that 20%. This one, notice the green is not as dark. More dry air has gotten in it, so just no odds there of developing. And then it continues on. And so when we get to next Tuesday here we have moisture, not a lot, but heading into the Caribbean islands. This one may be a little more moisture up here, and they're both heading generally in a west or a west-northwest direction. All right, let's continue on here into next week. So we'll go a week from today, and we're kind of in never land here on these weak systems. But you can see that they're kind of staying southish because the weather pattern is shifting. We're getting more blocking high pressure to the north here behind the potential hurricane. So that's going to drive things west a little bit. So after we get past the 25th, after a week from today, kind of a week from next weekend, we're going to just keep an eye on all this, what's going on here, because more systems are going to make it these little disturbances, making it farther west. And now we're getting into October where we start to look there in those areas near the Caribbean and so forth for development. And the pattern on the west side over by the Caribbean and the Gulf and all, especially in the southern part of the Gulf, could be more conducive to development. All a bunch of could be's, and we're talking about more than a week from now. But anyway, just to point that out. And here you can see the overall pattern. Look, you would say, okay, that's the top end of high pressure, but on the bottom end, it's all chopped up. If we had a normal kind of high pressure system sitting there, we have this low in here right now, and that's causing Gabrielle to move to the north. But over time, the long-range forecasts kind of show that high developing in there a little more, pushing disturbances a little farther to the west. So again, it's kind of confirming what we're seeing, maybe moving a little farther west, maybe into the Caribbean as we get to a more which we kind of expect this time of year, toward the end of September and into October. It's hard to believe that October is just about to happen here. But anyway, Ian, we're talking about it because it does look like at least some sense of a pattern shift coming up as we get toward the end of the month.
Yeah,
Ian?
So we'll watch it and we'll wait on it. It made me laugh a little bit, though, Brian, when you said dust front. I mean, we talk about gust fronts on Fox Weather, but we don't usually say dust front, and especially not when we're talking about a healthy tropical system, which we know Gabrielle is not that yet, but it will eventually become that over the weekend and early next week. That's Fox Weather's hurricane specialist, Bryan Norcross. Brian, thanks as always.